Okay, good day, everybody. This is Jim, the option professor. I've got a little bit of a cold, so bear with me. Um, we are going to start off 2025 and start talking a little bit about, where we think things may be going. I would say this to you that really there's two schools of thoughts. One is that we're going to have some type of a reversion in the first half of the year, and the other is we're going to have a reversion in the second half. History, there's been five times when the S&P's been up over 20% back to back. And in each and every time, the following year had a weak second half. So there's a lot of people who think that we might get a first half where everybody gets excited and then it could pull back. But as you can see from the graph on my screen, the reason I think it's definitely going to happen sometime this year is because we're way up here and the moving averages are down here, and a reversion to the mean tends to happen when that occurs. So it's not a timing tool, but it is an eventuality. And so we try to keep an eye on it because, as you can see, if it has a full reversion to the mean, that'll be a hell of a drop. So that's where we are. Again, guys like Tom Lee are talking more like the second half of the year and a big first half because of money on the sideline, the Trump excitement, and basically people are underinvested margin wise as well as stock wise. So that's the way people are kind of looking at it for the beginning of the year. We'll have to see. Today they started getting things on the bicycle. So again, if you have stocks you would like me to look at, please put them in the chat room. Otherwise, I'm going to run through some things that I think are going to be thematic for this year. 5G and 6G obviously is a very big growth area. Some people are calling for a 35% plus compounded annual growth rate going through 2030. That's the kind of thing you might want to keep an eye on stocks that might benefit. Now you have your typical Verizon and T-Mobile in them, but there's other companies that are going to benefit and maybe increase revenue based on it. And so here's a couple I'm going to show you right now. One is Shopify. And as you can see, we had it on our list on our options alerts in the 65 area, which was a great time to get started on it. And it's just continued up. So that one's already got a nice trend going, as you can see. So that's one that should benefit from the 5G, 6G. The other one would be Airbnb. So these guys are going to use the communication to enhance their business. Now, this thing right now is very interesting because it's at a pullback and it's in a tight window. If you see it breaking above 140 and 150, I would say it's time to make sure you're exposed to that type of thing. Next one, of course, is Meta. Obviously would use this kind of thing, and it's just been steady Eddie the whole time. The next area is looking for growth out of AI, revenue growth out of AI. And a couple of companies that seem to be doing a pretty good job of that would be Lululemon, which obviously was on sale at 240, and now it's back in the upswing. Another one would be, and this is kind of how you know your customer and know how to go after them. ServiceNow in the workplace area, very unstoppable stock. Had a pullback here. They had a chance to get in. It may have trouble here if it gets above 1100 and 1150, certainly back on the bicycle. And another one would be an insurance company, which has been a great place to be, Progressive. And Progressive's had a pullback here as well. So keep an eye on it. If it obviously keeps falling down towards 220, don't worry about it. If it starts getting above 250, 260, it's probably going someplace again. Altcoins, Bitcoin's had a very good time of it. One of the ones we talked about on our alert was MicroStrategy at 140 and 180. Look at that move. And it had a big pullback. This was the area that it might pull back to fill the gap. That's what I talked about up here. Reversion to the mean and fill the gap. So now if it can get above 327, which it's doing now, and stay above it, it could be back on the bicycle as well. Some people are looking for a Bitcoin at 150 by June, maybe 250 by the end of the year. If that's going to happen, this one would be one to keep an eye on. But in addition, this year could be the year of the altcoin. That means in addition to Bitcoin, you could be looking at something like Solana. And Grayscale has the Solana Trust. And you can see that's down near a lower price. RSI is diverging. So this would be something on the 1-year graph. You can see again, it's in the low area. RSI was 15. Over here, it's 35. So I would definitely be looking in there, because if the altcoins are going to have a reversion to the mean, if the other one's going to 150 or 250, these things could get a bid. So the other one would be Ethereum. Again, looks like it's turning. And so I just thought I would show you a couple of things there on the Bitcoin or the altcoin. Cybersecurity, big thing, right? So let's look at some of those. This is Kyndryl. Obviously, it looks like it's going someplace. Another one would be Zscaler. Again, on the 1-year, it's had a pullback. So let's see if it can hold down here and get moving. Another one would be obviously CrowdStrike. Again, needs to get moving, but it's a pretty good uptrend overall. Came down to the line here. Another one would be your Palo Alto network. Again, nice uptrend going on. Come right down here. This would be a place I would definitely focus on, this right here. And last one would be cyber, which is CYBR. And that one looks like it's taking off a little bit too. And it's on a nice uptrend, pretty strong looking. So there's your cybersecurity. Let's keep popping around here, and we will look at sports gambling. Most of you know DraftKings, and that one's had a little bit of a harder time lately. But a couple of them that are more well into the research of it all. Genius Sport, again, pulled back a little bit here, but it is hitting the red line here. So this is a neighborhood you try to keep an eye on it. People believe it has a big future. And SRAD. And this is another one that looks like it's got a pretty good future as well in the sports gambling area. The AI boom, might have just be starting with regards to what some people believe. It's supposed to be a $200 billion business last year, maybe going to 14 trillion, they say, by 2030. Now, the big players, but are there people that will benefit from AI and increase revenue and automation? Well, let's take a look at some of the companies that might be in that area. TEAM. Again, already off to the races a bit, had a pullback. Might be interesting place to take a look at this. See if it can hold. Got that gap there. Next one up would be HubSpot. And this one again, on a 5-year basis, again, it's pulling back a little bit, but the trend is pretty good. And another guy would be ANET and OKTA, as far as the symbols are concerned, ANET. This thing's been pretty much of a good mover for a very long time on a 1-year basis. Again, it's still above most of the lines. And another guy would be OKTA. Again, interesting place to take a look at it right here. And on a 5-year basis, I'm sure it looks reasonable now. This is in a tight range. So this one here, it gets above 90 or 100, you're probably into something pretty good. I'd focus on this, but I'd wait for strength. And of course, service now. Everybody's familiar with that. And this is another one who, like I say, can take AI and possibly do a big number with. And again, it just had a pullback. So this is a neighborhood, if it can hold and gets going, it'd be interesting again. So there you have a couple of different sectors there. What about AI energy? Well, if it's going to go uranium, this is one that we've been keeping an eye on. It's had a big pullback as well. It's holding the support in here at 45 and 50. Keep an eye on Cameco. And then you've got EQT. Again, nice uptrend there. And another one for the energy area could be Kinder Morgan. So these have already done pretty good, but keeping them on the radar and getting in when they revert to the mean is really, I think, the way to go. So if you see something that's like up here on Kinder Morgan at 29, when it pulls back toward the 26, 27 area, that would be more of a place to take a look at it. On a 5-year basis, you see right here, that was the place to take another shot at it. So I use the charts to tell me when reversion to the mean is happening. And that gives my timing a little bit better chance. So those were some of the areas. Now we've got, here's a couple of Chinese things going on, because China's stimulating and there could be some very good ideas there. This one here is a company that matches borrowers and lenders. And it deals in some of the, shall we say, not less desirable, but less popular um, less popular groups of people over there. Underserviced, we're going to call it. Okay. So you can see it's been on the bicycle here since 22, I'm sorry. And you can see on the 1-year graph, again, it's had pullbacks to the green line and it's been holding, and the blue looks like it's still a good uptrend. So there could be a future in this. I would keep an eye on it. Then you've got a couple of ride servicer, like Ubers. And this guy here, I've been, when it went down to $1 or something is when I jumped into it. And I think there's going to be a pop on it at some point, I think. And it could be happening this year. So that's why I'd keep an eye on it. A lot of real estate above if it gets moving. And then they got another one that's very popular called Grab. And these people are delivering food and they're, doing all kinds of things with delivery. And you can see it just pulled back here to the red line. So that's interesting right there. And again, it's got a lot of real estate if it wanted to go. Those are 3 companies that aren't talked about a whole bunch, and they're kind of cheap. So if they did get going on a percentage basis, it would be a pretty interesting thing. One company that's really gone nuts this year that looks like people will keep going into it is Reddit. I mean, this Reddit, my stuff here started to get positive on it, around 50 to 70. Now, obviously, it just had a pullback. That was a chance to get in, right? Come down here to the blue line. That came in, what was the low? 156, blue line 154. That's close enough. And the reason this thing's going is they have a unique user base that's growing that advertisers want to get a piece of. And that makes revenue. And that's how these things run. So I thought I'd bring that to your attention because I thought it was kind of interesting. It had a pullback, and then, of course, it's on the bicycle again. Now, we have earnings coming up, and they start on the 15th with the banks. Now, there is some cracks in the armor in the bank. One is the leverage loan default rate is over 7%. And that is the highest in 4 years. The other is the highest consumer default rate since 2010. These sound worrisome to me. And I'll tell you a couple of companies that obviously the owners got uncomfortable too. One is a firm, and the stock went from a high of 74 almost down to almost 60 recently, but it's back on the bicycle. So if they think the first half of the year is going to be 7,000 on the S&P, and they think people are going to be out there excited, maybe these guys can dodge a bullet, and this could be a good buy down here. Obviously, if you are buying it, you would love to see it get above. Personally, I'd like to see it get above 65, 67, and then that would give some credence that it might be going back up. Again, this could be a second half story as well, or this could just be a little rally that fails. Another one that had a more severe drop was Upstart. So I'm viewing this as evidence that somebody's worried about the consumer, because these guys loan to the consumer when they're trying to fix their car or, not exactly the prime. So this one really took it, and it went from a high of 89, let's call it 90, down to 60. So, that tells me somebody's worried about something. So got to keep the banks are coming up. By the way, I'll show you another way that this told me it was, there's you got an RSI of almost 80. And here you got RSIs at 65 and 50. So once you got under the red line, it was game, set, match. No big surprise that it tanked. Okay, now let's look about Tesla. Now, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Swahili, whatever you are, but it is a little weird having, uh, Musk down there in Washington. And it's a little weird when somebody challenges on something like those passports for supposedly high quality engineers, which some people are telling me they fill all positions, never mind high quality, you know. So, there's a debate over, is this guy down there trying to keep these visas going so he can get cheap labor? Obviously, that would be a pretty obvious thing, right? Or is it really necessary and totally necessary, and nobody in our nation could do these jobs? So there's debates going back and forth, and I don't think it ends here. I think there's going to be a lot of friction, and some of his ways of responding to criticism, you know, uh, F yourself and things like that. I don't know. Maybe that's the new normal, but if it is, it's certainly a lot of different than what things have been like. And this guy does have vested interest. He's got government contracts. He's got lawsuits going. He's got donations in there. Obviously, he gets government grants and subsidies on things. So he's not in there. But so anyway, we've had a pretty big pullback, 500 down to about 380. And you can see why this would be a neighborhood where it would stop and bounce. But they just announced they sold less cars this year than the year prior. So how do you go from $220 up to $500 and sell less cars year over year? I know there's a lot of things he's got planned. Nobody's in the taxi driving around. We're going to space, Starlink. He's got a lot of stuff going on. But this one here, like I say, you have to have the stomach for it. My stomach is very positive at 200 and 240, and maybe on pullbacks to 340, and maybe on a pullback here. But if it goes way, way up, you got to be a little concerned about getting into things after they run up, or else you're going to get whacked. So I just want to add that in. Let's go back to the banks, because again, earnings season in Q3 was supposed to be, was supposed to be, was up 8% plus on earnings. So we had good earnings in Q3, but Q4 earnings are supposed to be up over 12%. So the bar is getting higher. And I'm wondering out loud, is there a surprise ahead of us if the consumer is defaulting on this credit and leveraged loans are defaulting at the highest rate in 4 years, is it possible the numbers may not be as robust? So that certainly is not what priced in there. You got to be always on your toes for what might not happen. So let's take a look at some of the banks and how they shape up right now. JP Morgan had its correction. Now it's trying to break out, right? Trying to break out. So right now, as long as it can stay above 238 and hopefully 242, then you might be onto something because it does look like it's trying to turn. And this would be a good one to get into because if it has great earnings on the 15th, it could pop to 255 and test those highs. So keep an eye on this one. Conversely, there's a room to go down to 225 if in fact it really gave up the goose. On the 5-year graph, again, this is where it should have stopped and it did. So again, let's keep this baby above 238. Okay. Now let's go over to Bank of America, which might be more affected by this consumer news. But again, they pulled back to where they should stop. And now they just need to get back on the bicycle above $44, which it is. And here, again, these things are a little ominous. So there's definitely some resistance at 46. If they have a good report, they could go back and test those highs. A couple of them that move a little bit more, Wells Fargo, and that they're supposed to be really benefiting from deregulation. They pulled back and they're in a critical zone right here as well. They're right in there at around $70. So you need to get it back above 72, 73 to get it back in the bicycle. And the RSI is where it could happen from. Likewise, if these things get bad news, then of course, like their loan loss reserves are going to be very high. That would spook people, I think. Citigroup. These are all coming out on the 15th, right before the inauguration. Okay, this one's also really right on the ledge here as well. This thing breaks down. It's got a gap to fill and some line down here. Breaks above 72, 71. They could get going. Again, it pulled back and held where it was supposed to hold. And of course, Goldman Sachs supposed to make a lot of money with the takeovers, right? And the mergers and acquisitions. So again, this one pulled back. You had a good chance of picking it up here on the low. That was at about 544. So you're already $30 to the good. It's back above the line there. Again, filled the gap pretty well. But again, it's got this resistance here. So again, these things have gone into a window, and I think whoever the news comes out, you should get a volatile move out of there. So the earnings of the banks are going to start up here pretty soon. If you had any stocks you wanted me to take a look at, here we go. CISC and cash. Okay, let's take a look here. CASH and CISK and HSTM. And we'll get those done here and go from there. Okay. CISK. I don't know if there is a CISK. Let's go to the next one. Cash. Okay, let's see what they're into. They're financial, I guess. This is the neighborhood. This is the neighborhood right here. Okay. So if you like this thing, if you liked it at 86, you got to love it on the line here. What was the low? 71.63. Where's my number? 71.30. Pretty close. Oh, there's another one. Lines at 72.04, came in at 71.63. So this is the neighborhood because the trapdoor will go even lower if it breaks. Anything happening on the 1 month to tell me it's turning? Here's your RSI at 23. Here's your RSI at 33. This thing should turn. At least you know where the exit is. Nice to be on a highway where the exit's the next one if you've made the wrong turn, right? As opposed to one time I got stuck on a highway. It took me 30 miles to turn around. Okay, what else do I do for you here? HSTM. Okay. Yeah, this thing came down, held support where it should have held, right around 30 bucks, 33, 30.75. But it's kind of, yeah, this one I'd like to see it go to 32.50 and start breaking out. Otherwise, this looks like an up flag down pole. And the RSI is under 50. This one I'd be careful of. Again, I'd rather buy higher on its way to higher than find out I'm going to get into an up flag down pole. So that's my feeling. All right, we have got CLSK. Let me help you one more time here. Okay. Okay, this baby here has had a big pullback. There's your line. You don't want it under $8, and you had a chance to buy it down here at you had a chance to buy it at 902, so that would be the place to get it. If it gets above the gold, that's not bad. Gold at 1025, so if you want to keep it on a short leash, 1025 is a good number. And then if you go to the 1 year, again, everything's in a downturn right now. On the 1 month, again, it turned up, so 950. I don't want it underneath there, but again, it's not looking great right now. But you could get a snapback. Wouldn't be one of my favorites, but it wouldn't surprise me if it had a snapback. All right, I got a couple of minutes to tell you how to contact me, and you can talk to me about any stock, and I can share with you a lot more details on what I'm doing. Optionprofessor.com, OPTION, professor, PROFESSOR. David is putting up a link. Click on the link. We've got a great deal. I've been doing it for decades. I didn't go into options much with you, but I've done 9 million seminars and I've talked to 9 million people. So I'm very familiar with the product. So when you go to the, click on that link, you can get information or email me at optionprofessor@gmail.com. And I can talk to you after the meeting. Put in your contact information and I can talk to you. We've got options classes, which educate you. We got options alerts coming out every Sunday, which give you ideas. And we have coaching, me and you, one-on-one, help you and make sure you're the best trader you can be. Shoot me the email, optionprofessor@gmail.com. And also click on the link that David's putting up there. And I hope to talk to all of you when we both have more time. I have a better voice, which will be next week. And I wish you all the best of luck in 2025 and have a great time. Enjoy yourself. Talk to you soon. David, I'll send it back to you.